while I was listening to your conversation with Nick for the Book Thinkers podcast, I liked that you shared a lot about this transition that you had in your life from being like in a comfortable place and then needing like to adapt and to basically adapt and start doing more things and moving, which is something that you talk a lot about, right? Like motion. So I would like you to share that story and dive as deep as you want to do.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate being invited to your platform and sharing my story, and of course, very interested in hearing your story as well. So
Thanks.
we have a lot of similarities there. So yeah, man, as you said, so right now I run a decision AI company called Rwazi. Live here in LA, very nice life. So it's like the life I always dreamed of, right? So I'm exactly living in
Mhm,
my dreams, you know?
mhm, mhm,
But
mhm.
things went always easy. So I was born in Tanzania, right? I do not claim to, be a rags to riches story. Like how, how people when they're
Yeah,
successful,
sure,
they pretend to be like,
sure.
oh, I came from hardship. No, no, no. I wasn't
Yeah.
born in poverty or anything like that. So, my dad owned, he started, I was owning the first electrical and mechanical engineering consulting company in Tanzania, right? So very prominent, very wealthy. His dad owned like thousands and thousands of acres of land with like massive coffee business, massive timber business, plantains, had massive plantain farms, it's a ranch. So with like a lot of cows, plantains, coffee, timber as the
Mhm.
thing expands. So it was very successful. So my dad's dad was also very successful. And if you keep going back, a lot of like prominent people there, right? So, I was born in a nice, experience. We had like almost the early people to have like color television in the country, where the computer, my dad had that large, giant brick Motorola phone and things like
Uh-huh.
that.
Uh-huh.
So my childhood was very nice. I would print, learn to type when I was like 5 years old, and
Mhm,
things like
mhm,
that. And we used to go to when I started school. I went to boarding school in another country, right? So, we didn't have very good schools in our country. So I ended up going to boarding school in Uganda, which had like better schools. So, my early childhood experience was like very nice. And the
mhm,
exposure I had when I was a kid in the house, was we had the library in the house and books everywhere. And, I had the exposure with like the early innovators in the US. So the old guys, like the Rockefellers, the Henry
mhm.
Fords, the Andrew Carnegies, all those guys, right?
Sure.
So that was
Uh-huh.
like my exposure on like, what to do when you grow up, right? So that was my entire exposure. So, the presidents, the Herbert C. Hoovers, all those guys. And getting acquainted with like, oh, so building a business, my dad's running business, these guys in books were running businesses. So I want to do that, right?
Mhm,
Then around when I was 9, my dad's company, closed, so went bankrupt, right?
mhm.
And the way it went bankrupt, when I got older, my mom used to tell us everything, like exactly how everything went, but not in a macroeconomic sense, like, but in a normal everyday life sense, But when I grew
Sure.
older, I understood, okay, this is what happened on a large scale. So in developing countries, most of these developing countries, they like globally, you have like countries have debt, right? And they experience currency devaluation. Even in the US, right now the dollar is like falling. All of that is
Mhm,
fine. If you're a rich country, you can kind of like counter it, and the devaluation is not that like bad, right? But
mhm,
in developing countries, it's like it's bad. It's like crippling. And what happened in Tanzania was in 1981 when my dad started his company, a US dollar was equivalent to around like 8 Tanzanian shillings, right? And
mhm.
20 years down the line, when his company went bankrupt, a US dollar was equivalent to 1,000 Tanzanian shillings.
Whoa. Mhm.
So that's a 12,400% in currency devaluation, right? And that's before you add inflation on top of it. And the problem with them, with their world back then, you weren't allowed to hold any foreign currencies. So you couldn't hold. Let's say you make
Mm.
revenue, make big deals, you have a lot of profits. You can't keep your money in dollars. So you have to keep your money in this currency, and the currency is just evaporating right over time. And even if you increase your prices, the prices of your services by 10%, 20%, 50% year over year, you're still going to go bankrupt because the rate of devaluation is much higher and you have inflation on top of that, right? So that's what happened to him basically. He lost like 99.2% of his net worth in 20 years.
Whoa.
And they were like, those guys were very smart. Like my dad was very smart. He knew exactly what's going on, but he was that generation of people who believed, we have to stay in our country and build our country and all that stuff, which I think is nonsense. But anyway, so he was a victim of that, right? So
Sure.
when he went bankrupt, liquidated all his assets, we ended up going back to his dad's house, which is like the ranch in the village. So we ended up finding ourselves in the village, out of school, right? Lost all our stuff, like all of good stuff. We lost all of that stuff. Became village kids, and at that point, we no longer had the money. So my dad's dad also died around the same time that my dad went bankrupt. So there's like calamities everywhere. And then because of that, we didn't have money to manage the ranch. When you have like a massive estate, you need to have money to pay workers, like people to head your cattle, people to like manage, to like farm and so on. We ran out of money, so we didn't have anyone working in the farm, so we had to work in the farm, right? So I found myself from like this city kid chartering planes, studying abroad, to a village kid taking cows out to the bush to like eat and, and take them to
Yeah.
drink.
So like a really big change.
Exactly. It's a massive, massive, massive,
A
massive
massive
difference,
change.
right? And I'm telling you something, like you'd rather. So there are advantages and disadvantages. If you're born rich and you fall into poverty, it's a worse experience than if you're born poor, right? The advantage of someone who is by default born poor is they can only go up. So they don't have the shame, they don't have the depression, they don't have everything associated with a collapse. The disadvantage they have is they've never seen a high point, so they don't have a good reference point of where they need to, like how high they need to climb. On the other side, if you're born rich and then you have a collapse like us, like in my case, the negative side is you fall into depression, right? So my first depression, I was like 10 years old, right?
Whoa. So really young.
Exactly. And the problem with having a depression at a young age, you're having depression, you're shameful. So now people in the village were laughing at us. Like, oh, you guys thought we were rich. You thought you're all that. So now look at you now. So if everyone is laughing at you and you're a kid, it cripples you and you fall into depression. The disadvantage is you may not recover, right? And the advantage is you've seen what wealth looks like, so you have a bar to which you can target and say, I want to climb back to this level and above. So at least you have the advantage of exposure, but then you have a disadvantage of you have to now overcome your depression and the shame and all that stuff, right? So those are like the situation. So I was in the latter, heading cattle and all that. Now, my mom, we're very lucky to have a mom like the one we had. So my mom never hid anything from us. She never said, this is for grown-ups, these are kids, we'll shield them from knowing what happened. She told us exactly what happened. This is what happened, this is what happened to your dad's business. And my dad was doing business with government, with the government and things like that. And those guys, super corrupt, not paying bills and things like that. So he was like, he had like millions of dollars in amounts not paid, right? Up to today, never paid. So you can imagine, right? So now, my mom told us all that stuff, exactly what happened, step by step. And so we understood the context from which we found ourselves. And my mom was, 1 year in, 2001, the whole year ended. So my dad, when he took us to the village, he just left and never came back. So waited for him 1 year, didn't come back. So the promise was he'll come back and take us to America, right? We'll start a new life there. Well, never showed up. Right? And then next year didn't show up. So my mom was like, okay, guys, here's the situation. Do we stay here and wait for your dad to show up, wherever that is? Who knows if he will ever show up? Or do we start crawling ourselves out of this hole and finding our own lives? We'll take the latter because we can't be out of. We want to build our lives, so let's go. Let's do this. So we started. My mom was like, okay. We don't have any money in that setup. There's no like circulation of like money. So we're like, we need to sell something to make money so we can use that money to go to the next town and start living our lives, right? And luckily for us, we had like the second year we're in the village. Towards the end, we had there was an event at the nearby school, and it was like a 10-year anniversary or something like that. And school is like funded by the Swedish government and whatever. So these guys were coming. So like, okay, this is a good event. We'll bring in a lot of people who have money. So we need to serve something. So what kind of service or product could we sell to make initial cash? And the easy thing that came up was breakfast. We can serve breakfast. My mom knows how to cook. Very, very, very good cook. And when we're coming to the village, we've brought her books called like Food for 50. So like we'll find the recipe. So let's find the recipe. Now we need to find something, a snack we can make for breakfast, but it needs to be a snack that people in this local area can understand. So you can't make something too weird that they won't accept, but it can't be something they're used to because then it's not too differentiated. So we looked for all the options. We found a donut, making donuts. Now, in like 200 mile, in a 200-mile radius from that place, no one had ever seen a donut. Like no one even knows how to make donuts. Because like the normal donuts, like if you go there, like what's the donuts? They make like a normal bun and they put a hole in it and they call it a donut, right? Not like a real donut. So we looked for ingredients, and one of the criteria we had on what we can sell was, do we have ingredients that are readily available to us, right? So donut was that. We didn't have money to buy the ingredients, so went to the nearby shop at that school, borrowed, the ingredients, like simple ingredients like flour, oil, that, and so on, and ended up. And my mom had to go to town. I remember she had to borrow money and go to town to find like nutmeg, which is like one of the ingredients you need for the donuts, and ended up making the donuts. Made the donuts with milk tea because remember we had cows, so we just took the milk, like milk the cows, got the milk, made milk tea, donuts, and then we didn't have money for furniture or anything, so we just took the furniture from the house, like the chairs and tables from the house, just put them on the road under a tree, and then we set up shop. Set up shop early in the morning, like at 7 a.m. Set up shop. People are going to the event. They would pass there, eat. Everything just started flying off the shelf. By 10 a.m., we had sold out everything. Like everything, we still had more customers, right? So that was a massive sale, and we sold them at a higher markup than normal snacks. So sold out. Went to the shop, paid off the debt from like the previous day, and then paid for new ingredients for the next day. We did that for a week, made money, right? To me, that was the first experience of you just have yourself. Like this is my mom. Looking at my mom, right? She's just by herself. She has a problem in front of her. She knows what skills she's good at. She did the math on I can make the cake, I can make a muffin, I can make all sorts of things. But none of these things are closely related to what these people are used to. So I need to find something that's like as close as possible to what they're used to. And that was a donut. And it needs to be differentiated enough that people will be excited about it. And then I need to make this quantity, I can borrow. Now, how was she able to borrow? That's like relational capital, right? So she's a trusted person in the community, high integrity, people trust her.
Sure.
So you just have that.
Having credibility.
Exactly, you have credibility. And that's the currency that she used to get, that one day ingredients, like the one day ingredients for the business. And then sold, we served well. That was my first experience, like doing business, serving, and all that. And that was very nice, right? And showed me like when we tucked in our shirts, everything was like very properly dressed, which is unusual in that village. Like people who serve food, they usually like rough and dirty and all that. For us, we had the cleanest stuff. We have the nice, everything was clean, right? So people like that. And to me, that was like the first exposure to how do you create a business from absolute thin air? No money, there's nothing, right? With what you do. So we use that money, right, to move to the nearest town. So the town's like 25 kilometers from the village. So we moved to a town. So we went to a town, we got like a one-room apartment. Like it's one room. Like in America, when you say one bedroom apartment, they mean there's a bedroom and there's a kitchen and then there's a bathroom.
Sure.
No. In that world, when I say
it was just a bedroom.
Exactly. You open the door and then there's just one window and everything's right there. So like 4 kids, mom, so 5 people on one mattress in that place. and with like a shared toilet outside and all that. And my mom got a job. Now, the other thing she was good at was math, English. She was like an A student and all that. So she got a job as a tutor at we call it tuition center. A tuition center is like after school classes, right? So she was getting like $5 a month teaching, those evening classes. Now $5 a month is not enough to live off of for a month, right? So how do we cover the gap? We decided to do the same thing we did in the village. In this case, we took the advance from the $5, like the salary advance from the $5, use it to buy fish, right? So you buy that place is at the lake, so you buy fresh water, whatever, the lake fish, and then it's like chopped in 3 pieces. You fry it, and then you sell it at a markup, right? So we started doing that. Now the amount generated from the markup is higher than $5. It was around like $10 or something. It's like twice the amount. Like $15. Like it's a good markup because that's like a very good and high demand food product. So we started making around like $10 profit from that entire thing. And that was enough to like live by. And imagine we're kids, so 1 meal a day could get us through and so on. So that was the life. And in that scenario, my mom started doing after, so she's teaching a $5 thing, and then she started taking students on the side as like private students that she's tutoring. You get a bit more cash, and you add the fish stuff, and the thing started rolling like that. Then when the fish business started going well, we had one of the ladies, these ladies in the street, like in the neighborhood. She was out of a job and she needed support. So like, okay, we can't pay you salary. Whatever you sell from this fish, if we scale this, if you can sell it from day to evening, so that we can go to school, you can get a cut, right? And in the beginning, it wasn't like even a cut of like you get paid. She moved into a house. There's a 5 bedroom.
Oh,
She moved in, she had a child. So like 7 people in that place. So
yeah.
she moved in. She would sell fish. So her own thing was just doing fish. We made more profit from her just doing the fish thing, and life was like that. Then we did that for like a whole year. Then my mom. So now we're out. Remember, we're out of school from the village. So that entire year we're technically out of school, and then my mom's siblings, my uncles, my mom, told my mom's dad was like told my uncles like, guys, these kids need to go back to school and da da da. Okay, so my uncles end up taking me to secondary school, which is like I was 12 at the time. So secondary school was like 3 years younger than my classmates, and I was number one in class. But one semester in, they asked me, well, do you actually like it, or do you want to go a couple of classes down to primary school to your age mates? I was like, yes, I would rather play with my age mates.
Whoa.
End up going back, to primary school to play with my age mates. Anyway, so my mom's siblings did the evaluation. They're like, look, what she's doing is okay, but she can't have like a nice life and achieve financial independence by doing this. She needs a permanent job in the government and so on. So my mom's dad, kind of like lobbied for them to pay for her teachers college. So they did. She went to teachers college, became a teacher formally, and then we ended up moving to another, relatively bigger city, and she started teaching. Now, when we moved there, she started getting like her first salary was like $35 a month, equivalent to $35 a month, and I think right now it's like $30 a month if you adjust for inflation. So now, okay, $30 a month, still the same loop. It's not enough to sustain, our life. So we would use like $30 a month would take us like 2 weeks of like groceries. So and then we'd borrow an equivalent of around $30 from a shop to live off the next 2 weeks. Now, how were we able to borrow? Because she had a full-time job and that is a trusted member of community, blah blah blah. And then you get to end of month, and then you have another $30 that you pay back. So it's a loop of borrowing and always catching up to your debt. How do you break the loop? So we're like, how do we break the loop? Sat down as a family, and my mom was like, okay, one thing we can do what we used to do back in the village, which is selling snacks. So let's go back to selling snacks. So we went back to our normal rubric, got borrowed ingredients, made the snacks. My younger brother and sister were going to the same school as my mom, so they would carry the stuff. My mom would take the snacks there. Now, who was the target customer? The way we approached it was, who can pay the most for the snacks? The teachers in the staff room. So they have breakfast, at school, and breakfast is just tea or coffee, and it's not served with snacks. So mom was like, I'll fill that gap. I'll sell these guys snacks and all. I'll bring a small volume in the beginning. If they like it, they can put orders. So we started doing that. And of course, my mom is a very great cook. So that boomed. And to me, that was another example of like, look, how do you start a business? Let's say, how do you get unstuck? You have a job, let's say, or you're on campus and you want to start a business. Instead of saying, well, I want an AI company, but I don't have capital, I have this idea for AI, I want to get in accelerators, forget about all of that stuff. The way you know what business to start is by looking at what you're spending your money on right now. So you look in your, bank app or, whatever. Look at where you're spending your money, right now. Where you're spending your money is telling you where your needs are, and the way you define needs is where the money is being spent, right? And then where is everyone in your house is spending, where are they spending money on, and where is everyone in your immediate environment, in this case on campus or at your job, spending the money on, and that's the need you should be feeling. So my mom would looked at, I am a staff member at school. I get tea for breakfast. They don't sell snacks. I end up paying someone else, kids to go to another neighboring shop or something to buy me bread or whatever it is. So that and everyone else in my staff room is doing the same thing. So this is an immediate need that I'm experiencing right now, and I'm spending money on it, and my fellow staff mates are spending money on it. Or just create a product for it and get all that money
to fulfill that.
Exactly. So that's how the snack business there started. Business
Sure.
really boomed. People loved the snacks, so it was making an equivalent of a salary per month. So now we no longer had to take on the groceries from the store because the money was enough. But then another problem emerged, which was, this is not enough money to cover if we want shirts, if we want new shoes, things like that. So and it consumes a lot of energy. So like my mom had to start waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning, make snacks 8 in the morning, then carry them to school. It's just a very high energy consuming thing. So what would be the alternative? Well, I'm a teacher. Why can't you teach evening, like after school classes at home, right? To kids who are interested. So my mom announced, hey guys, at school, I'll be starting after school classes, just math and English. So we had to shrink down the things we'd focus on, just math and English. And then she started teaching after school classes. After school classes started making more money than the snack business with a much higher margin, because remember, there's no cost of goods
Sure.
for teaching. You're just your time.
Yeah, it's just the service.
Exactly. And it's low energy consumption because you just come back home, the kids follow you back home, and you sit in the living room and you teach them, right? So it's much less energy consumed. So the snacks, which was high energy consumption and high COGS, we stopped. We just shut it off, right? So the after school thing started booming. After school thing boomed, we're like, okay, so now how do we create predictability in this business? So like, instead of kids paying every time they come for evening classes, we'll just get the parents to pay a monthly subscription. So pay per month and so on. So started paying per month. And then instead of getting schools in the last year of primary school, the kids in the last year of primary school who are interested to do the national exam, let's get kids from that last year and the year prior, so that the lifetime value is higher. Like in business, there's this concept of like customer lifetime value, which is one, you want a customer, and then two, you want a customer to pay you, like the premium amount, right? And then you want the customer to pay repeatedly, which is hence the subscription model. And then you want that cycle of paying repeatedly to be as long as possible. So you want
Sure.
the customer to use a product for as long as possible. So my mom's product was helping kids who are in the last year of primary school to get prepared for the national exam. So that's like 9 months in short. So it's a 9 month lifetime. So it was like 2 points. The equivalent was today's money. It's like $5, right? Something like $5 a month per kid. So $5 a month, 9 months is $45. But then instead of that, so the lifetime value was $45. So instead of that, we're like, can we go to the year prior and say you'll be better prepared if you start 1 year before? which more than doubles, makes it $90 plus another 3 months, that's $105. So lifetime value increased from 45 to 105 by targeting kids in the 6th year of primary school instead of the last year, which is the 7th year, right? So that's the approach that we did. So the business.
Okay, just one short comment here, or question. I guess that I mean, right now you just broke it down like with actual business terms and with actual like business analysis. At the time, I guess that it was just like
No.
thinking and logic, right? Like
Yes.
it was.
At the time,
Like
of course, we did not know what a subscription was. We didn't know any of that stuff. But now I'm looking back at it, like, that's what we did. We did.
Sure.
We did like,
Yeah.
we did like startup math, but we didn't know what it was. For us, it was just mathematics. It was like, oh, you want people to spend more, you want people to do this, you do it this way. That's all. And the reason we wanted subscription, we didn't call it subscription. Like, it doesn't want people to pay monthly because we wanted to have all the cash up front so we can cover our expenses predictably, right? So that was just the thinking, but we didn't think of it as in business terms. And yeah, so anyway, so now we had more kids because the kids that my mom would teach after school classes would go on to get A's and go on to better secondary schools and so on. So we had more parents bringing more kids. So now it became overwhelming. So how do you solve it? So my mom started scaling the workload. So I started, getting in and marking the exercises. My sister started getting in, marking the exercises. So she started scaling that. Now, as we increased our revenue piece, the problem became because we can comfortably spend on groceries and so on, we want to do other things. We want to buy radio, want to buy this, want to buy all these other things. And, our cash, even with the growth and all that, is not like the most cash in the world. So how do we solve for this? We decided to reduce the number of meals we're having from 2 meals a day to 1 meal a day. Instead of like 2 shabby meals a day, we have like 1 really good meal a day. That's still cheaper than 2 shabby meals a day, right? So by doing so, we would create a cash buffer, and the buffer would be used to do other things that we want. So want a carpet in the house, you want new curtains, want a radio, want da. That has to be saved up for, and we'll save it by controlling our expenses. So that's like kind of the approach that we did there. So we did that. Now, from my experience as a kid, I was very, very inspired by how my mom was running the show. And my mom was very transparent with all of us. Her salary, how the salary upgrades and all that stuff. And I looked at all of that and I was like, well, this is very good and well, but we're never going to be millionaires.
Yeah.
With this route. Like, we're never going to even reach the level we were at before my dad went bankrupt. So I need an out. I need a way out. And my way out at the time, as a kid, you can't work, you can't do all of this. I was like, I'll just get A's in school. And, if I become an A student, I'll get a full scholarship, go to university, get a good job, and then that's it. Start my company and eventually blah, blah. So, got A's in school. Then, of course, I realized getting A's in school is actually not going to, it's not going to create anything. Lucky for me, at the school I was at, the secondary school I was at, I was so pissed at it because it's like a normal public secondary school. I wanted to go to a very, very fancy, secondary school, which can give me opportunities to go to where I want to go, right? But I was there for 2 years and, got all the A's, broke all the records, I was the GOAT, but, nothing materialized, right? Nothing happened. Then the beginning of the 3rd year, I went to school late because I was pissed. I was like, I'm not going back to school. I'd rather be out of school. I'm smarter than all these kids. I deserve to be in a better school. And then my mentor at the time told me, look, it's 3 weeks in, school has opened, 3 weeks in. Just go. This was a Wednesday, right? Just go today, see, fill it out, and we'll see. If nothing happens, if you can't get, to a better school or anything like that, then we'll see what actions we can take and so on. Okay. So I went to that school on Wednesday, and then people were like, where have you been? Right? So they told me like the American embassy, guys from the American embassy showed up. They were taking kids. They have this program. They're taking kids who are like number one and number two from each of the top schools to the US. And you weren't here, so they took number three, right?
Oh,
I was like top of the class. My first
damn.
was there, and then they took number three. So I'm like,
Uh-huh.
God damn it. So, and
Yeah.
then my headmistress called, asked me to her office, like, where have you been? 3 weeks. The school has opened 3 weeks. Where have you been? I'm like, well, I'm not feeling this school anymore. I said, okay, so there's this thing. Innocent, who is my friend, I was number three. He's already signed up for it. If you go talk to him, if he's willing to give you back your slot, fine. If you're not, then you don't. So went to find Innocent. So Innocent, he was like, what? Where have you been? He's like, I didn't want to go to do all those interviews. I don't want to speak English. I don't want to.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
They gave me
uh-huh.
back his spot, right? Gave me back his spot. So the next day, which was Thursday, I went with Justin to for the interviews that we had, like the written interviews, like math, sciences, all that stuff. And we had these kids from all these rich schools, the fancy kids coming in with their big cars and all that stuff. But
Mhm,
Justin and I got there early. We're the first there. And when the guys from the U.S. Embassy came, we talked to them. We're like charming, talk to them, da, da, da. So they got to know us. Like we're like friendly, da, 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 so we engaged.
mhm, mhm,
So did the exams. We did like 5 different exams, like tests, and of course I was number one across all of those guys. I had like 100%
mhm,
average, the
mhm.
usual. And people were shocked, like, who's this guy? Justin was seventh, which is great. Then the cutoff was like 30. We had like 60 kids. Cutoff was 30 for that day. And then the 30, the following day on Friday, we went to like oral interviews, right? And oral interviews, these guys from the State Department were like, we won't call people up. We just want volunteers. Who's willing to volunteer to be the first? I was like, yep, that's me.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Went, killed the interview. And then that was it. That's how we got the government scholarship to come to the US and go through high school. So I ended up finding myself in Iowa, here in the US, Monroe, Iowa. Very nice city, very nice town. It's a small town, very few people,
Mhm,
but very friendly people, right? Friendly experience, very nice experience. Went to high school, last day of high school, finished. Now in the US, like the difference with like different countries and cultures is they expose or like hide your potential, right? So in the US, they have this thing which is very unique. I've traveled so many countries. It's only the US that has it, which is Americans are more inclined to propel you towards expressing the most talents that you have than anyone else, in any other culture, right? So if you go to the
mhm,
US, if you have, I didn't know I have a talent for speech. I didn't know I have a talent for like theater. I didn't know I have a talent for
mhm.
like a million other things. And people just say, "Oh, you do?" I'm like, "Well, how? Try it, try it, try it. I'll
Uh-huh.
try all these things." Got a lot of medals, etc. So that was a very, very good experience. And when I was in the US, my thinking was, well, when I finish, this is it. This is my ticket. Now I'm done with. If I'm done in high school, I get a full scholarship, go to Stanford or wherever, and then become a software engineer and go work for Apple and make all the money, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm, mhm,
then save my mom and my siblings. Well, I got a lot of presidential scholarships, like those top scholarships, right, from all
mhm,
the nice universities, but
mhm,
the cost was way too high. Like, so they say annual cost back in those days was like 60K a year to go through, a university. And I'll get scholarships of like 30K per year or like, 40K per, like maxed out, right? But then where am I going to get 20K or 30K or whatever is left? Because my mom at the time was getting like $250 a month, $200 a month.
mhm.
So where was I going to get the rest 20K? So I couldn't find it anywhere. And I had this belief that, I can't take loans to go to school. That's like the
Mhm.
most
Mhm.
ridiculous idea I've ever heard of. It doesn't make financial sense to go into
Mhm.
debt, like, and these debts are like 20-year, 30-year debts or whatever it is. I'm not willing to get in debt just to go to school. I'm smart enough.
Mhm.
My ticket is my brain, right? So if my if my brain can't get me there, I need to find another way. So I found
Uh-huh.
myself going back to Tanzania, man. Going back home, I was absolutely depressed. Remember, the first depression was 10 years old, so now I'm
Whoa.
18.
Uh-huh.
18.
Uh-huh.
And the depression is even worse because you've been in the US, you've touched glory, you've seen it. Like, you've seen that you're not a loser, that you can actually do all these things, and then you fall all the way back to your normal life. I'm like, God damn, that was bad. That was bad. I went completely nuts. I was out of my mind for like 8 months. Then I started thinking, so I started looking for jobs. I was like, I can't get school. I didn't want to go to university in any, you know, shitty university. I was like, no, I don't want any of these universities that are ranked like 10,000 in the world. I don't care. So
Mhm.
I need to either go to a good university on a full scholarship, or I just go to work. Looked for a job, couldn't find one because everyone needed experience, at least 3 years of experience.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then my problem was like, so it's an entry level position, and you're requiring 3 years of experience for an entry level position. How am I going to get experience if I don't get the entry level position that requires experience?
Uh-huh. Sure. Yeah.
Because because like a chicken and egg situation, right?
Uh-huh.
So, like, how do I break this chicken and egg situation? Let me go to do business. Let me go for business. Screw employment, I'll do business. So I started my first graphic design and video production um, business, and
Mhm.
because I came with like fancy laptop, Adobe Premiere, InDesign and all those
Uh-huh.
things, and I had done a lot of design in the US, so I was very very good at it. I was like, okay, I'll just do the business, and started recording weddings, like doing video and editing and all that video production for weddings, and then started doing logos for like churches and small businesses and all that. And then I got my first lesson in purchasing power, right? So purchasing power in the US versus Tanzania was like 10x lower, right?
Mhm.
So people couldn't pay like what you'd charge $500 in the US, you'd have to charge like $50 in this area. And even the $50 people would pay, even $100 people would pay like $50 up front, and then they're like, "Oh, pay $50 to finish." When you finish, they're like, "Oh, I've run out of cash. Can you
Mhm.
just help me out?"
Mhm.
So people couldn't afford the services, so it wasn't worth the while. So I had to stop. And I was like, "Okay, I can't get a job. I can't run a business. What can I actually do?" So now, in that position, what I felt, which is my reflection, and that's why I put it in the book, is what you need is to be useful. You see, like a lot of young people nowadays are saying, we don't have a purpose. Young men are depressed. They don't feel like they have a purpose. And they're like, no, your purpose is just to be useful. That's it. That's your purpose. Like if you want to feel alive, and I challenge you, if you're depressed, if you're like broken and you feel like the world is against you, blah blah blah, get out of your house, go to a homeless shelter, go to an orphanage, go to any place and volunteer. Like, just
Mhm.
make yourself useful. That
Mhm.
entire feeling will just go away, right? And that's the epiphany I had at that point. I'm like, wait, 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 wait. When I was in the US, I went on a mission trip with like the First Reformed Church to Louisiana, right? New Orleans, Louisiana. They had Hurricane Katrina, houses completely devastated. So we would build
Mhm.
houses for these people who were like devastated by the hurricane. And
Mhm.
to me, I was fascinated. I can actually build a house. That thing gave me, like I can actually come and help people and
Yeah,
build a
like
house.
fulfillment. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So fast forward, now I'm in Tanzania and I'm broke. I don't have any future. I can't go to school, can't get a job, can't run a business. I'm like, what can I do? I'm like, I can just be useful. I can volunteer, right? So I
Mhm.
got out of my house. I, went door to door, and my idea was like, what volunteering? I can volunteer to solve the problem that I'm experiencing myself, which is young people who have finished college and school and can't get jobs, don't have a life. They're just sitting at home. So I went door to door and recruited those guys. Like, what are you doing in the house? I'm not doing anything. I'm doing this thing. You want to join? Joined. And then I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay, what can I help these young people to do? The easiest resource that was around was land. A lot of people have land, so we can work the land and make agricultural products. What's the what's the barrier? It's like water, like irrigate for irrigation. So I'm like, okay, we can raise like donations for water pumps, for like pumping water from the ground.
Mhm.
So we started doing that. People won't take me serious. I'll go to offices door to door, like pa. You walk in an office like unannounced, and then you just want to talk to the boss, and then you pitch it, right? And people were very impressed. I was 19 at the time. People were very impressed. Like, but you need to go to school. I'm like, what for? I'm doing this now. Like, no. So I'm like, okay, these guys are seeing me as a kid. How do I get them to take me seriously? I need a brand. I need a big brand behind me. So where are the NGOs? So I started pitching to NGOs, wanting to get him, to join them. So I ended up going to the UN and finding myself in the Youth of the United Nations Association, which is like a youth segment of like the UN volunteering group. So started running with the UN flag now. I could
Mm.
raise massive donations. So I was able to fundraise, able to mobilize a lot of young people and parents to give up their lands, rent free for us to do agriculture, built water pumps, used proceeds to drive those businesses and get people to get paid. Some of the proceeds would, buy clothes and do games at primary schools for kids who don't have shoes and things like that. Massive. I did that for 2 years. I was fulfilled. I was happy. And these are very difficult things to do. It's like you're running, zero budget community development projects, right? Very difficult things to do. So
Mhm.
that was very successful, and the State Department was like, "Well, can you go to now, these other places to, teach, to, get trained to teach other people who come from exchange programs to do the same thing when they go back home." So I started doing that, and finding myself in Indonesia and a bunch of other countries. And then the State Department
Mhm.
sponsored me again to go to Lehigh University, which is in Pennsylvania, for a summer program, a postgraduate summer program. I wasn't necessary, I didn't have a degree at the time, and I had
Yeah, you were not even an undergraduate,
exactly,
so.
exactly. But I jumped, man.
Uh-huh.
Did that, and that experience at Lehigh was my exposure to the world of business. And the
Mm.
exposure was, well, doing development stuff is great, but it's highly reliant on donations and it's not sustainable and doesn't create as many jobs as you'd think. However, if I help businesses grow across multiple markets and in many areas, as they grow, they end up, using more service providers who would end up being small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And as that expands, those businesses would hire more people, so the impact is greater, and you're creating more economic activity. So I switched. I stopped the development stuff, switched to consulting, and started getting out of consulting customers. And
Mhm.
that now took me, years, like 8 years from that point. I was doing consulting, and 2 years into that, I got a corporate sponsorship to do my undergrad eventually, right? So
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
got
But
a full.
how old were you at that time? So when this
So
happened?
I went to do my undergrad when I was 23. That's when I started to do my undergrad.
Ah, okay, okay. Uh-huh.
23. So it's 5 years. So at that point, my classmates from high school have already finished college. Some of them have gotten married.
Whoa.
And when I'm
Uh-huh.
just getting started, right? Now, I never did undergrad as a normal person because I was 23. I know the world. I've been running stuff at the UN in this place. So I wasn't like in class and stuff. Like I would show up in class, my attendance scores were like the lowest, right?
Whoa.
Because I was doing consulting, I had customers. So I would be in class and like crunching numbers. And my job was for a multinational company, which has like a big range of products and is serving customers across multiple markets. My job was the problem that would come with me to me with was, of the markets that we have, which market should we invest more in? What product from our portfolio of product or services should we push into that market? Targeting what consumer base at what price point, through which retail channel or sales channel, and so on to generate our desired ROI, right? So that was the problem I would solve. And I did that for like energy, healthcare, transportation, CPG, and
Mm,
so on.
mhm.
And that is how I first solve the problem of like data. Data isn't there. And then these
Mm-hmm.
guys, even multi-billion dollar companies, they don't have good decision systems. So they aren't making decisions based on, it's not just based on data. It says, do you have a model and a good system that will take you to make a correct decision? All these companies have data. They have sales data. They have like, advertising data. They have customer feedback data. They have volumes
Mm-hmm.
and volumes of data. Having data is not the point. The point is, have you built a correct decision system that harnesses all of your data, external market data that they don't have, and then internal data, whether it's first party, third party, second party, to generate
Mm-hmm.
correct decisions? And the answer was no.
Wait, just a brief parenthesis here for people listening. I think that it would be useful that you define what first party and second party is, because like
Yes,
then while I was reading what you do at Rasi,
yes,
is that how you pronounce it? Rasi?
yes. Rwazi. Yes, yes,
Rasi.
yes.
I saw that it is a zero
Yeah.
party market intelligence company. So yeah, just for people listening, if you could clarify that, it would be great.
Yes. So okay. So what's third party data? So third party data is data that's provided by like your company. Let's say Emiliano. That's business. Emiliano's business. Third party data is the data that's provided from outside sources, and it's highly implied. So outside sources are what? You have Amazon, you have Facebook, you have Google, you have research companies, and so on. All of that stuff is third party data because it's just provided by outside sources. It's not the customer, it's not your customer, and it's not you, right? It's not your data, it's not your customer, and it's not even your partners like sales channels and so on. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
third party data, right? And the problem with it, so there's so many types of third party data. So the problem with it is if it's research, like research companies, they use panels. You go and ask, when's the last time you've seen when's the last time, like, how often do you drink milk? Well, I can say, every week. I can say every day. Who knows? Like, what's the validation? How do you prove that
Mm-hmm.
that's true? When's the last time you saw this ad? Well, I can say last month, 6 months ago. None of that stuff is flying air. And I was shocked. Like, I was the customer paying all these guys to do that. I was like, what the hell is going on? This is ridiculous,
Mm-hmm.
right? And after all, they do interviews. Like, for instance, right now, traditionally how it's done, if you want to know how the China markets, how what's going on in the China market with regards to, let's say, iPhone cases, you'd you know you'd call up, one of the ways these big companies do it, you'd call up a couple of executives or like managers working at companies in China and then ask them
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, how is that anything? How can that stand? It's ridiculous. Or you just interview a couple, like 50, Chinese consumers, and then use that to extrapolate on a country of 1.4 billion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Extrapolation is just you have like few data sources across different segments and da da da. You do sample size and then use that to extrapolate. I think it's ridiculous, right? Because when you want to know if it's ridiculous or not, how many companies are using that to execute in the market and falling flat
Mm-hmm.
on their face because it's not true, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong. Then you have like data like from Facebook or from apps, those web crawlers and so on. That data is highly implied. So if I'm scrolling on Facebook and I see Ralph Lauren and I pause, the system, of course, assumes I want to buy or I'm interested, so film me more ads like that. The problem is I may have paused because I'm going to a bathroom, or I may have paused because I'm watching something else somewhere else, and so on. There's so many reasons why I may pause, or there's so many reasons why I'll do different actions. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like implying my intention based on my activities is still not correct. That's like highly, implied. So if you
Mm-hmm.
make decisions based on that, you've seen how many companies fall flat on their faces. Then you go to second party data. So second party data is, for instance, you are running like a juice brand, and you're selling through Walmart. So Walmart would like give you data on like what stocks, what other products are there in a category, and da da da. So that data you're getting from your distribution partners, that's like second party data. The same thing, if your distribution partner it doesn't have to be a physical product. This could be like let's say podcasts. You have the code that you put, and people are buying through your channel, and da da da. That's all in that data that the brand is getting from you. That's second party data and so on. And then first party data is the data you collect yourself as a business. So transaction data, people buying from your website, or customer feedback data, and so on. That's like first party data, right? The problem, like the gap with first party data is it's not telling you how that person is using your product and how they're using it outside, how they're using other competitor products or other substitutes in their own default environment. So for instance, you actually don't know much about the actual person other than this is Joseph, maybe he's this age, and then he buys this often, but where is he living? Who is he living with? Why would he buy? What else is he using your product with? And you don't know that entire context of the person himself. So zero party data is data that is voluntarily shared by the end point, in this case, the consumer, on their default activity. This is a very important sentence. Like default activity, it means you're not prompted. This is like something you're doing already organically. And then you're just logging that. It's like journaling your default activities, right? And in journaling, you're not saying anything, you're not answering anything, you're just journaling. In journaling, the job, like in our system, is now you journal with images, video, mostly images and video, and audio and text is when you're interacting with Ella, which is our AI, and then we extract all of that. So Senna, which is our customer AI, extracts all of that and only shows the customer the signals. So the signal layer, which is this is what you should be paying attention to. So you have like thousands of signals. Let me give you an example. In one image, if you take an image of what you have in the fridge, we extract more than 12,000 signals from that one image.
Whoa.
12,000. That's just one image. Now, so are 12,000 signals important to, let's say, a company selling yogurt, like strawberry flavored yogurt? Well, not 12,000 of them. There's some that you need. And if you're struggling with lifetime value or market share or both or the cost of acquiring customers or your ad effectiveness, the signals that are important to you are very difficult even for you to figure out which signals you should be paying attention to, right? So that's where AI comes in as a decision system. So it tells you this is what you should be paying attention to. This is what it means. So this is what it means, i.e., this is what's going on in the market. And then this is what it means for your business. And then this is what you should do. And this is how to go about it, which is where the copilot comes in. So for us at Rwazi, what we end up building, I did 8 years of trying to do that on incorporate. And of course, very difficult, not feasible, blah, blah, blah. Ended up deciding to start Rwazi with Eric, my co-founder, to solve that problem by building this decision system. So our decision system is trained on zero-party data. So it's not that the customer's need isn't data. The customers, they can infuse their data into our system. Have plenty of data. They can infuse their first party, second party, third party. Our system is trained on zero party and uses all of that data that they have or only data that we have to just tell the customer what to do, right? And you would be shocked. You'd be like, well, because we have like all these, in the beginning, you would be shocked that, well, would Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies subscribe when they have these systems? I used to work for them. They don't. So when I started a business, it was easier for me to know that they would subscribe because I knew they don't. But other people who are outside, they're like, well, I don't know. I mean, the demand is there, but I don't know if it will work because these companies are billion-dollar companies. They have the money. They probably have systems. No, they don't. They don't. So now we ended up getting a lot of like very high, Fortune 50 companies as subscribers using our AI to make decisions because internally they don't have those decision systems and ours is not trained like any other. And you'd ask like, how is it different from like generic AI that you experience, like Gemini, GPT, and whatever? They're not trained on zero-party data.
Mm-hmm.
The normal generic AI you interact with is trained on publicly available data. And of course, there's a legal problem, which is most of it is like copyrighted and so on, right? So you have a
Mm-hmm.
massive chunk that's copyrighted, and that's a risk for the enterprises and so on. Ours is trained on this, data that no one else has, and highly contextual, 190 countries, and so on. So that's those are like kind of the technical like nuances. But anyway, so going back to the earlier journey. So I went through this experience. I saw that these guys don't have decision systems. But I didn't just jump. I didn't just jump and say, well, there's a problem, so let me just go solve it. No, no. I needed to make sure, is the problem the same across different companies in different sectors? And then are they all always spending too much money trying to solve the problem? Because I need to make sure there's like a good, addressable market. Are they spending a lot of money always trying to solve the problem? And then is that cutting across multiple functions, not just sales or marketing? So
Mm-hmm.
eventually, when I established and I satisfied myself, I'm like, why is it that all the big established guys aren't trying to solve this problem? Is it unsolvable? Is it like what's going on? So I spent years doing that. We spent like 3 years, me and Eric, just doing modeling and figuring out, well, how do you capture data at scale to train your AI? How do you validate it? How do you, account for nuances and diversity in languages and culture and and context? So it's a long, long, long development cycle. And then we end up launching. When we launched, the same thing. We went for pre-seed. There was no pre-seed.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get pre-seed investors, which I think is a very wrong move that young founders do, which is, well, I can't run a business because I couldn't raise funding. Like, no. The purpose of the business is to render services to the market. And the market is going to pay a fair price based on the value assigned to the services rendered. And the only way you justify whether your business is real or not is by just going to the market and getting people to pay for it. A
Mm-hmm.
business isn't like a science project or something. A
Mm-hmm.
business is you're solving a problem that you have experienced yourself. So I was the guy looking for decision systems. So you've experienced yourself. You know for a fact people need it, and then people buy the product, right? So we went to market instead of raising pre-seed that we couldn't. We just went to market. By the end of our first year in 2021, we were profitable. And
Mm-hmm.
then the challenge was, how do you scale when you're profitable, you don't have excess cash to invest in growth. So how would you scale when you're profitable when you don't have excess cash? And our answer was joining accelerators that have a large corporate network. So went on to join
Mm-hmm.
Techstars. So Techstars has the largest corporate network of all accelerators. People go to YC. If you have B2C, YC is better. If you have B2B, Techstars is better. And so
Did you go to YC to try to get
B2C,
funding?
I'm a B2B company. YC is for B2C companies. Like,
Ah, okay,
if
okay.
you're running a B2B company, go to YC, like, good luck, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
want to get customers immediately and you want to tap into a large corporate network, Techstars is stronger than all accelerators. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So we did that, finished Techstars. Within Techstars, by the time we finished Techstars, we had like $1.2 million in ARR. So, we on demo day, 2 minutes of demo day, we had like $4.5 million in bids. Because at that point you have
Mm-hmm.
revenue. Like, young founders struggle so much with I want to raise, pitch deck. No. The only thing that matters is, can you generate revenue and can you grow? And you're not doing it so you can raise money. Like, this is a problem that people think raising money is a cool thing. If you raise money, you're just diluting your position, your equity position in the company. So you're losing ownership, right? And the pitch the investors have is, well, I'll help you open doors. And investors are not going to help you open doors. No, they're not going to. The only reason you'd want to raise money is, like in our case, we have 1 million of ARR, we've exceeded that, but we're profitable, which means we can't hire engineers worth 300K. We can't, hire, people in sales. We can't overly do things to prepare for next year's revenue because we're protecting profitability. So fundraising is serving that purpose of being able to invest in the future. That's all. Because your
Mm-hmm.
profits, even at 1 million, are not big enough to make those investments. That's all. That's the only reason of fundraising, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we did our seeds, great, and we were very lucky to get like the best investors. And our selection process, because we were on a strong position, wasn't because you're an investor and you get in. No, we knew what kind of investor do we want. An investor needs to see my vision before me. So if I tell you what Rwazi
Mm-hmm.
does today, the way I know you're a good investor for me is if I tell you what Rwazi does today, you need to be able to tell me where Rwazi is going to be in 10 years and 20 years. You need to see it. If you can't see
Mm-hmm.
it, that tells me I'll be struggling to explain to you the vision every time and you'll be a pain. You know what I'm saying? So if an
Mm-hmm.
investor doesn't get, like the investors we got, we were explaining what Rwazi was back then. And they were like, oh, they could see it. They told us, oh, you guys
Mm-hmm.
will be able to do this, we'll be able to do this and that. And if you do this, I'm like, oh, yes, that's actually what. Then that was the excitement. That's how you get correct investors, right? Anyway, so we did seeds, which was great, started exploding, and we've been growing massively since. And today we've exceeded $20 million of ARR, hundreds of millions in value, and growing well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, going back to my mom's story, I retired my mom. I retired my mom a long time ago, and she's now retired,
Great.
good life, chilling.
Does she also live in the US or
Yeah,
still in
so
Tanzania?
yes. So my mom, my siblings, although my brother is now in France, my sister likes the
Mm.
UK, so bounce around. But yeah, man, so it's all it all ended up, coming to like fruition, right? But the time gap between the events, like the time gap between went broke in the village to successful done, those 20 years. 20
Mm-hmm.
years, right? So 20 year there's a 20
Yeah,
year
20
slope.
years, and it took like two depressions you said. So like
Yes,
the first one, which was like the breaking
technically
point, and
three
then the
depressions because there's a long story there. So first depression was when I was 10, second depression was 18, third depression was 22. So what happened there is, remember when I told you I went to Lehigh and life was great and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
I invested so much. I was doing consulting. I got a lot of money. Invested so much money in agriculture, and all of those
Mhm.
businesses went bankrupt.
Oh.
Agriculture. Don't invest in agriculture. It's a terrible, terrible business. And that was my second depression. That was it. That was my third
Okay, so then it
depression.
took three depressions.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
only did third depression. But
Whoa.
but yeah, man. So after I figured out the basics. The most important thing if you're starting up a business is a co-founder, right? You want the best co-founder in the world, and the co-founder doesn't have to be like you, but they need to be like a best friend combination such that, and you need to hope that you guys will grow. Even if you grow in different trajectories, they will still be compatible as you get older. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So I've been
Sure.
friends with my co-founder for 10 years now. 10 years, right? We met October
Hmm.
1st, 2015. We've been best friends 10 years. And we've grown differently, but we're still we've grown in ways that still complement each other, and that
Mm-hmm.
that relationship is still strong. So I think that's the most important part. He doesn't like the limelight. I'm not too much of the limelight, but for me it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
He's extremely stingy. I like spending, so we have like all those combinations, which are an advantage. Anyway, I've spoken for too long, but
No, no, no. Yeah. So I think that, well, first of all, you've got an incredible story. That's something that anyone that listens to your life path can easily see, I think, because
yeah,
it's like a story full of ups and downs and
yeah,
overcoming things, and then like you see a part where there's like light and that everything seems like okay, yeah, well, it'll be perfect, but then something happens. Especially like with that part, I'm talking about how you went to the US and
yes,
then everything seemed like okay,
yeah,
this is it now, and then boom, no, it
yes,
wasn't. So
exactly.
yeah, I mean, it's a really amazing story, and I loved how you connected it all. As I told you before we started recording, I think that you communicate very well, and
Yeah,
that like this was very logical and chronological,
Yeah,
and very easy to follow, I think. So thanks for that. And
appreciate it.
I mean, there are many things I would like to unpack
I have
from
time.
your whole
Yeah.
story. Sure.
You don't
So
have time, but for me, I still have time.
no, it's okay. No. So I mean, the first thing that is also striking is, I guess, well, it's not necessarily the primary thing that is striking, but like you talked about different, very different quantities, right? So like, for example, in the beginning of your story, you were talking about how $5 a week, a month was like a salary,
Yes.
and then like jumping to $30,
Yeah.
but then like going to the point at which you are right now, it's like we're talking about millions of
Yeah.
dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you've gone through this very massive changes. How is it for you, and like mentally, to think about those quantities and that
Yes.
reality that you have gone through?
Yes.
How is that?
Mentor. Like having mentors is has been the most important thing in my life. So,
Hmm.
you know, the problem with poverty is, I think people don't understand poverty. What poverty does is it reconfigures your limits. Like it reconfigures um like the definitions of like what's possible, right? And what's normal. So when we were wealthy, life was normal and everything was okay, and having a $17,000 computer in the house was normal, right?
Hmm.
When we went broke, like complete dead broke, $5 a month was normal, right? And we, like in the beginning, you feel you're depressed that you've gone bankrupt and da da da, and then over time, and it's very dangerous for kids. Over time, your brain adjusts to that life, adjusts to walking long
Hmm.
distances, adjusts to eating one meal a day, adjusts to having one pair of shoes for like 3 years. Like
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
brain just adjusts. And the problem,
Hmm.
when your brain adjusts to the level of like $5 a month and $30 a month, guess what happened to my brain? I stopped dreaming of having a company like my dad. I started dreaming to have a full-time job like one like my uncles. So my uncles had very great jobs. They're all engineers, and my dream shrunk to I need a house like one of my uncles, two cars, and that's it. And I just need to have tea with milk and bread in the morning. That's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it was like you become like a zombie, right?
Hmm.
Now, how did I get out of there? When I went to the US the first time, I was like, "Oh fuck, I have forgotten where I need to reach." Right? I was like, "Oh yes,
Hmm.
I forgot." So in the US, everyone was rich. Like everyone has giant houses, giant everything. Kids, 14-year-olds have cars. I was like, "Oh, I forgot that I need to go here." Right? This is where, like,
Hmm.
this is the level I was supposed to be striving for. Right? So I went back home. I was like, "Okay, this is not it." Right? And then that period of working with the UN and wherever, I was actually in rural areas, driving campaigns in rural areas. And those areas are like broke. So my mind still succumbed to regulate itself to that environment, right?
Hmm.
So I started working. I remember when I was like depressed for the third time, I got a job offer for like $550 to teach English in Cambodia. And I accepted because to me, $550 was great.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Because
Yeah.
your mind just adjusts. It's very dangerous, right? So
Hmm.
now when I started doing consulting for these big companies, then I started having budgets. Started having a $600,000 budget, and for them it's just like a quarterly budget. Like, and you need to burn all of it before the end of the quarter. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, so they spend like $300 on dinner. I'm like, what? Can you spend $300 on dinner?
Hmm. Sure.
You know,
Sure.
and I was like, what? So, and my mind started opening slowly. Like when I went to Lehigh, we go to New York and wherever, and we'd find like $35 for a plate. I was like, $35 for a plate, and and
Hmm.
all the way to $300 for a dinner. And then my mind was like, oh, so no, I was lost. No, a dinner is actually supposed to be $30, so this is actually normal. So that was like an adjustment. Then I started the business, Rwazi, with Eric. We used up all our savings, right? And went dead broke, like broke again, right? The one went broke, went too broke, and I think my expenses were like $10 a week.
Whoa. Okay. Okay. So big change again.
And
Uh-huh.
that was poof. And that was like
Hmm.
you can't pay for rent, so it's like 5 months behind on rent. You can't pay, you're just dead broke, right? You don't have mobile data, you're just using Wi-Fi and so on. And I would I would have this had this mentor Michelle, right? Michelle, very absolute best mentor I've ever had. So Michelle would look at our budget. So we'll do like budgets. We started getting revenue. So when I left consulting and started Rwazi, in consulting I would charge a lot of money, right? Because making a fortune. So when I started Rwazi, our first offer to the first customer at Rwazi, the subscription was $18,000 a month. The customer refused, like jumped and was like, that's too much. So we started, because we're so desperate, we started reducing our subscription price all the way to $1,000.
Whoa. Okay. So
That's
yeah,
when we got our
18
first
times
customer.
less. Uh-huh.
And when we got to our customers $1,000, that kind of like struck a fear in our minds that you don't want to charge too high because, you just charge a little, pay yourselves a little and all that. So we shrunk again, right? So I started making budgets, and we had this budget for like, the next year and so on. And we were profitable because we were paying ourselves nothing, like very little and so on. And then I showed Michelle, we presented to Michelle. Michelle's like first angel investor. And showed Michelle, this is our budget for next year. Michelle was like, what the hell is this? Why are you paying yourselves like students? This is ridiculous. Like he was angry. He was actually like pissed. He was like, you are not supposed to make a childish budget like because we had interns, like the way we managed the company, we had like 20 interns, right? And some of the recent graduates but haven't gotten a job yet, so we paid them like $200 a month. Michelle was like, this is ridiculous. We need to stop this. You guys need to run a serious business. And to me, that was like a slap, like wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then we made a choice, Eric and I, we made a choice, like we need to go to the US, right? We need to relocate physically to the US. At the time, I was in France before 2020. COVID took me to Mauritius. I was like, okay, we need to relocate back to
You
the
live in Mauritius?
Yes, COVID during the entire year of COVID, I was in Mauritius. So like,
How was that there?
Mauritius is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. You should visit. Very nice place. So I was like, well, we need to live in an expensive city like LA so our minds can keep up, right? And when we relocated to LA, expenses are through the roof. It put a giant strain on our cash flow. And Eric was my founder. Eric was like, no, we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to move to like Tulsa or to like to a cheaper city. No, we're going to stay in LA, and we need to make money that we can live in LA comfortably, right? And that was the drive that got us to quintuple our revenue, to get to $1.2 million a year. Because in LA, you either have millions of dollars or you go home. Like, it's like there's no in between, right? And that's what drove us. And you get used when you're living in LA. You get used to paying $45 for breakfast. Like I use DoorDash all the time, right? And I eat from restaurants all the time. When you get used to paying $45 for breakfast, you stop seeing $45 as a lot of money, right? When you stop seeing $45 as a lot of money, you stop being shy when you're doing pricing for your business. You stop being afraid of the numbers. So numbers feel so normal and trivial. Like so, like right now we have customers paying $1 million plus a year. And to me, $1 million landing in an account it's nothing. It's like, it's saying like $1,000 landing in an account. It's like nothing, right? Because you raise your operating expenses and living expenses. You raise what the line that defines normal is. So, for example, you see how a lot of like digital nomads say, "Oh, I don't want to live in New York; it's very expensive. I'll move to to Bali, Indonesia, because Bali.
Yeah.
I lived in Bali. I lived in Bali. It's very cheap, right? You can live in Bali for like $1 a day, right? Now, if you live in Bali for $1 a day, why would you struggle to get a $500,000 customer? There's no incentive, because a $50,000 customer is more than enough to give you way too much money to live for like 10 years, right? Or like 5 years. So you don't have the drive. And I'm telling you, I have not seen anyone. You can't outrun like the environment. You can't outperform the environment. If your environment, so there's this stat you should look up. You should look it up. It's like there are only 20 cities in the world where you can be a billionaire. Like only 20. Like all these billionaires, they only live in 20 cities.
Hmm.
And the highest concentration of millionaires in the world, they're only in 20 cities in the world. They're just 20.
Okay.
If you don't live in
Hmm.
these 20 cities, your chances fall by, I don't know, however many percentage. What does that mean?
Mm.
That means these cities are highly pressurized. They will they will pressurize you to the point of increasing your baseline, like your normal line, to a very high level, and you start seeing $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 as normal.
Sure.
And when you do
Yeah.
that, you price correctly, you target correct customers, you build a correct business that solves a need that will charge that amount or scale in a way that will generate that income, right? So that's
Hmm.
how, for me, I've been able to like go through this fluidity, right? But
Sure.
it's
Yeah. That's.
fascinating. It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, no, and it's very interesting and something that is even like, yeah, part of human nature, like to adjust to the
Yes.
environment that
Yeah.
you're in, because otherwise, like, you will just keep the constant struggle for like as long as
Yeah.
you are there, and if it's just like for a week, it's like, I mean, it's just a 1 week struggle. It's not that
Exactly.
much of a problem, but like
Exactly.
if that extends to a lifetime, then it's or not even a lifetime, but a few years, it's something that you need to adjust
Yes.
to, even if it's like subconsciously. So I mean,
Yes.
it totally makes sense, and I think that in some extent, or yeah, to some extent, it kind of is a positive thing in the way
Yes.
that, like, let's say, for example, I enjoy backpacking a lot, right?
Yes.
Again, because I'm still young and things like
Yeah.
that, but
Makes sense.
I, it has been good when I have just like enjoyed
Yeah.
having a simple meal and
Yes.
coffee for breakfast with my friends, because it's like, okay, yeah, it's enjoying the simple things, but that doesn't mean that I cannot enjoy like something more, like something on the other side,
Yes.
right? So I
Yeah.
think that that's a good thing
It's a very good thing.
to have, but
Yes.
like I agree that it's not about like setting constraints for yourself. It's
Yes.
about
Yes.
being being able to adapt to any
Yes.
situation
Yes.
without necessarily constraining yourself as like, no, this is my box, this is where I
Yes.
should
Yes.
stay. So
Yeah.
I mean, and again, going back to like the highlights and insights from your story, I think that it's very interesting how you have gone through that, not like one time or two times, but
Yes.
like several
Multiple
times
times. Yeah.
along very different stages, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I guess that the last thing I would like to talk about before diving into three final questions I usually ask all of my guests
Yeah.
is the like cultural, well, intercultural background that you have, which is something that we also mentioned that
Yes. We
we
have
kind
that
of
in
share.
common. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've mentioned that you have traveled a lot and
Yeah.
like lived in many places. Yeah, how has living in different places built your view of the world? And if you could give like some examples of different places that have given you like different insights, for example.
Yes. So I'm a third culture kid. We're both third culture kids. So
Mhm.
my definition of home is never a place. I do not have like a definition of like a place as home, right? So home is, is wherever, like wherever I'm at and I have peace, that's home, right?
Mhm.
Because I live in so many countries, so many cultures, absorbed so many like languages, which is interesting. Lost a lot of languages along the way as well. But um, my view of the world, like I see, and that has made me like very successful in business, like whether you're doing sales or doing whatever. I understand people pretty well. Like
Mm.
my meter of sensing someone I should work with or shouldn't work with is extremely high, right?
Mm.
And understanding what makes people do certain things, like being able to, harmoniously coexist with other people. Like to
Mhm.
me,
Mhm.
that has been a big advantage of living in all these places because you no longer see it as foreign. Like there's nowhere. I've been in Japan, I've been in France, I've been in UK, I've lived in Italy. When I lived in Italy, I didn't speak Italian. Don't speak a word in Italian. And
Mm.
I didn't have a phone at the time. I stopped. Like I was angry. They kind of phased out QWERTY keyboards. And
Mhm.
when my Motorola died, I was like, I'm not gonna get this touchscreen stuff. So I didn't have a phone. So I didn't have a phone for 3 years. I would use my laptop. So I would navigate around Rome. I was living in Rome. I would navigate around Rome with just speaking English and people speaking back to me in Italian, and we would
Okay.
understand each other, which is crazy. Like we would
Whoa.
understand each other. It was the craziest experience. So to me, and Bali the best, and so many places. To me,
Mhm.
my insight has been people are good. Like you have good people in this world. Like people are actually good people, right? What we like, the way we see like people react badly, is a misunderstanding of what they mean. So, for instance, I've lived in the village. These people that we call like racist and that and all this stuff, they're people like actually bad, like actually mean and so on. But the people, most people we call like racist and whatever, they just behave like how people in a village would behave. Like if you live in a village, you realize that people in the village, they have a monoculture. So they all know each other. They all know each other's grandparents and so on. So it's just this small closed world, and anyone like 5 kilometers from a village or whatever is a foreigner.
Whoa.
So it's just that their view of the world is extremely local. Hence their reaction to
Mm-hmm.
anything quote unquote foreign, right? So these are like very
Mm-hmm.
simple stuff. So yeah, so I've had a very good experience. I've lived in so many places, and all those places I love them. That's why even houses have like residences, so many places, and we'll keep expanding that because I think people
Mm-hmm.
are good. So many cultures are good, and so many cultures have benefits. Like for instance, you can never get like you can almost not get depressed if you downsize to a village life. Like I was in Hawaii in April.
Mm-hmm.
When the plane is landing in Hawaii, you feel the pressure just leave you. Like just by landing
Mm-hmm.
in Hawaii, you walk around in Hawaii like this is life. Like this is actually comfortable. You can live, stress free, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing if you go to Mauritius. Same thing you go to Bali. Same thing with XYZ. You're making you. Let's say you live there, you'd make less money, but you have so much freedom that you won't
Mm-hmm.
have if you're living in New York or LA or in
Sure.
a high pressure place.
And also very different types of beauty. For example, like specifically in
Yes.
Mauritius, Bali, places like
Ex-
this, Hawaii, you have like
Yes.
this
Different types of beauty.
volcanoes. Yeah.
Exactly. And you learn to appreciate the variety of it, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
Paris is beautiful in a different way, you know, LA is beautiful in a different way, Iowa is Monroe is beautiful in a different way. Each one of these places are beautiful in their own ways. And
Mm-hmm.
you can't say one is greater than the other or something like that. It's like in different seasons of your life, the same thing you've been talking about, you liking backpacking. At different seasons of your life, you want to spend more time in one area than the other and things like that, right?
Sure.
So it's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice experience.
Makes total sense.
I
Hmm.
encourage
And
people to
one,
travel. Just travel.
yeah, yeah, no, totally. And I am currently building a travel app with a client from North Carolina, but I can share more about that with you later.
Nice.
But yeah, so one comment on that is as well that I have felt as well that like going to cities like New York City or like in Mexico City and these big cities where you feel inspired just by going to the streets and
Yes.
watching people do things. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll join. And that's just like
Exactly.
related to what you were talking before about
Yeah.
the environment,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
Well, so three final questions. It's just three quick questions before letting you go. These are questions I ask all of my guests, and the first one is: what is a book, a movie, a music album, a blog, whatever that you have watched or consumed recently and that you enjoyed or found valuable?
Interesting question.
I mean, you could also mention your book, I guess,
Yes.
but.
Yeah, so I have a book out. It's called Never Stay Broke. It's on Amazon. You guys can check it
Mhm.
out. But my favorite book of all time. This is greater than the Bible to me. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. When I read that book, that's when my life started going poop, up. Right. So Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. You need to read it, and you need to read it especially when you're when you're stuck and desperate, and you're willing to make actions. You're going to follow it and execute, right? That's my favorite book of all time. Um, Movie I've watched recently. My favorite movie is Almost Famous, right? Because it's like I like movies that are like coming of age journey, going through that
Mhm.
transition. I love them. The one that I've watched recently that I liked, um, I would say, I like this Marvel zombie series that's out on Disney Plus. I don't know if you guys have checked it out, but
No, 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 I haven't seen it.
like
Yeah.
Marvel, I don't like recent Marvel movies. Like there's 5 years they made
Mm.
type movies,
Hmm.
but they're like animation series. Like What If, now the zombies. They're
Mm-hmm.
nice. I like those. I like those.
Okay, cool.
Music wise, I don't think I have new music per se. I listen a lot. I'd make music myself, but I like drill, like melodic rap, right? So that's what I
Okay.
listen to most. Yeah. So yeah. That's like kind of
Okay.
the highlights. Yeah.
And any chance you like Common, the rapper? Because I mean he launched an album like 3 years ago I think, and it was like kind of melodic rap, and I
Yeah.
like that rapper a
Oh,
lot.
yeah, send
So
me the link.
yeah,
Send me the link. Send me the.
yeah,
Oh, by the
sure,
way,
I will.
the recent movie that I watched. Hold on. I think let me find its name. Movie. This one is called. Uh, no. This one I can't. Uh, this one. Looking for the movie. I watched this really nice movie recently. I watch movies all the time. I'm a movie fanatic, but this
Cool.
let me look for it. Uh,
Sure.
and movies. Ah, I'll do Sicario. The one Battle After Another is not bad, by the way. The
Mm-hmm.
one that DiCaprio just made, I watched it. It's not that bad.
Oh, I
But,
think yeah, I
but
saw. I
there's
mean, I haven't
one.
watched it, but
Yeah, but there's one I want you guys to see. It's made by this guy, Benicio del Toro. Um, Let me see. It's called The Phoenician. This movie is
okay.
nice. The Phoenician Scheme, right? This movie is
Ah, yeah. Mhm.
this movie is like artistic. It's weirdly nice, out of the out of the norm. Very nice movie. The Phoenician Scheme
Mhm.
is by Benicio del Toro. Very nice
Yeah.
movie. Very nice movie. You should check it.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, well, thanks for the recommendations. Then, second thing, and you can relate this to maybe your book or to any part of your work that you're doing currently. What is something that you have learned or discovered recently that you have found very valuable? That can be like a lesson or maybe an AI platform or an app or like anything really.
Gotcha. Lesson. I think reflection. I think reflection is our way of is the most efficient way of evaluating ourselves and then iterating on whatever we've been doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I wrote this book, Never Stay Broke, was it came from my reflection of like how I got here and the entire journey and all of that, but also wanting to write my thoughts down, which is a very for me it's a very therapeutic thing. Write my
Mm-hmm.
thoughts down and then translate them to things that people can act on, right? So to me,
Mm-hmm.
that reflection is I would encourage a lot of people to reflect and iterate
Mm-hmm.
from the learnings of that reflection.
From those reflections.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. And then the last thing is so my podcast is called Coffee Lounge because I really love coffee.
I love it.
And yeah, so what is your favorite kind of coffee? It can be a specific drink or a specific bean or anything. And
Um,
which is a situation in which you enjoy drinking coffee.
so I drink like milk with coffee rather than coffee with milk.
Okay, okay. Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
vanilla latte. Does vanilla latte count?
Yeah, sure, it counts.
Latte is my favorite coffee. I
Okay.
Which
Uh-huh.
situations do I find myself drinking coffee? Mostly when I'm out, like when I'm out on like semi business, like catching up with founders, my founder friends, and things like that, or like catching up with like people from like the banking world, whether it's like people managing my banking stuff or things like that. That's when I end up drinking coffee. I don't drink coffee that often. I often drink like the
Mm.
chai latte or like things like that. Like I like
Oh,
chai.
okay.
I like chai. So
Yeah.
coffee, chai latte, vanilla latte. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Chai latte is good. And I mean, I like your response more than other guests' response who say
Yeah.
that they don't like coffee. I once had a guy, I mean, I had a great conversation with him, but in
Yeah.
the last part, he said that he didn't only not like coffee, but that he actually hated coffee. And I mean,
Oh,
that was just fun. But yeah.
yeah, I'm with you. No, I
Yeah.
like coffee. I like the taste, especially when you have
Mhm.
like vanilla and then your milk. Oh, it's nice. It's nice. I love it.
Yeah, sure. Well, it was a great conversation, and then again, I think your story is very spectacular and inspiring. So thanks for sharing all of those details and insights. Is there
Thank you.
anything else you want to add? Also, like where can people find you, your book, your work?
Yes. People can find me online. So Joseph Rutakangwa. So I'm on Instagram at J Rutakangwa. can find me on LinkedIn, Joseph Rutakangwa. Any other platform, Joseph Rutakangwa. You can get the book Never Stay Broke on Amazon. Man, thank you so much for having me on the platform. This was a very nice engagement. I loved it. I loved
It
it. A lot of
was. It
discussion.
was. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show.